March 2012, and Joy's going to tell us about discrimination.
Okay. I'm going to talk about a couple of episodes when I was discriminated against, and then an example of discrimination that I was a witness to. And all of these happened some years ago, but I suspect that things have not changed a whole lot in some areas. Anyway, the first time that I witnessed discrimination was that when my ex-husband went into the military. When my ex-husband went into the military, he was shipped off to Vietnam, and so I was by myself. And we had been living in student housing, but he graduated, and so we needed to find another place to live. And he worked for a while as a probation officer before the whole draft thing episode. But anyway, after he was gone, after he went off to Vietnam, I needed to find a place to live. And so I was working and I was going to school, but I was a full-time student, and so we had animals, and I wanted to get a house. I needed to get a house that had a yard, so I went to a number of different rental places and was honest and said, yes, I'm a student and I'm working. And in more than one case, as soon as people found out that I was a student, it was like, we don't rent to students. No discussion. It didn't matter that I was working. It didn't matter that I was married and responsible and everything. It's like, we don't rent to students. So. But a worst case of discrimination was shortly thereafter. I was still looking for a place to rent. I found a house. Through a what do you call it? Property development people. They did rentals for these people, and so I found a place to rent and gave the man my deposit and made arrangements to move in on the 1st. And I was receiving what do you call it? The allotment checks from my ex-husband at the time. And so I arranged to have the allotment checks transferred from my old address to the new address where I was going to be moving in. And I made all these arrangements, and it was about 2 days before I was supposed to move in. I'd given notice on my place, had my stuff all boxed up, and the property development manager called me and said, I'm sorry, we can't rent to you. And I said, why not? You've got my deposit. I've made all my address changes and everything. And he said, the owner of the property will not rent to military. And I said, but, that's so unfair. You have my deposit. I've made all the arrangements. I did all my change of addresses. What am I supposed to do in a day, to try and find a place? And furthermore, my new checks, my allotment checks, which what I was using to pay the bills with, are going to the old address, or going to the address. So it was like, too bad. So I was very upset, to say the least. And so I had to scramble around like mad in 24 hours and find a place to rent. And very fortunately, I did find a place to rent. A friend of mine was moving out and said, well, we can move out early, or you can move in. I forget whether we moved in early or they moved out early, but we were able to move in there. But I had no money at all because my allotment checks were going to the old address. And so I remember going to the post office on the 1st and telling them that, I needed the allotment checks. They were going to this address. It wasn't the right address. And they said, there's nothing we could do to help you. And so I cried. I burst into tears, and I cried. And this very nice postal person took me back into the back room, which I'm sure is totally illegal, and said, we'll go through the mail that's supposed to be going to that area because it's going into the postal bags today. And if we can find the checks, we'll give them to you. And so they did. They found the checks, and they gave them to me. As I said, no, it was totally illegal, I'm sure. But they did it, and I was very, very grateful to them. So those are my two instances of discrimination against me. I'm sure now that you could sue them and do all kinds of stuff now, but anyway, in those days it was not good. And then another time, once I moved into the new place on Franklin, let's see, there used to be a little corner market that I'd go up to on a pretty regular basis just to buy odds and ends of stuff, milk and things like that. And the owner of the little market and her husband had some rental properties. And they asked me, do you know of anybody who needs a place to rent? I said, no. It would have been me a while ago, but I don't know any place. And so they put an ad in the paper for their rental things. And she came in, and so I came in again, and she was very upset. She said that that they'd gotten this phone call from this lady who sounded wonderful, and she was employed, and she was, they checked all her references, and she was great, and she'd come out to look at the place, and she was black. And I'll never forget, the landlady just had a fit. She said, I can't rent to her. I can't rent to a black woman. I can't do this. And I'm standing there.
Wow.
What do you mean you can't rent to a black woman? I just can't. I just can't. And she said, I'm going to have to find some way to get rid of her. I don't know what to do. So it's like, and that was my first example of flat-out, blatant discrimination on the basis of color. I'd never seen that before. And she wasn't even, from the South. This was Riverside, California. But she was not about to rent to a black woman. So, and I thought to myself, the lady's full-time employed. She sounded really good. I mean, it's not like she's, a drug dealer or something. So I felt bad. Anyway, that's discrimination. And I know it still happens because I know that the Sacramento Bee, 10 years or so ago, did a whole thing where they sent groups of people around to inquire about renting an apartment. And they sent different combinations. Like they sent a man and a woman, a white man and a woman, a black man and a woman, and then one white person and one black person. And then, combinations thereof. And they found that for the same apartment building, people responding to the same ad, that the apartment owners would show the white couple, this is amenities, and there's a swimming pool here, and da-da-da-da. But for the black couple, it's like, well, the rent's such and such a month. I mean, there's no effort to really sell them on it. So still, discrimination is still alive and well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.